when we talk about military legacies, our minds often jump straight to big monuments or maybe famous battles.
Right, the national scale stuff.
Exactly. But what happens when that history, that weight, gets put to work right here locally? How does an organization started decades ago, maybe under tough circumstances, not just hang on, but actually become this like vibrant hub driving progress right now?
Yeah, that jump from just being historically important to being, super useful day to day in the neighborhood, that stuff is probably the biggest challenge for any group that's been around a while.
Hmm.
We see it all the time, right? The institutions kind of lean on their past glories
And lose touch.
and lose touch with what people actually need now.
And that is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking at the American Legion Fred Brock Post 828. It's this real cornerstone on San Antonio's east side. And they were just named the 2025 D2 Strong Community Pathfinder for Progress Award recipient. So the sources we've got aren't just like celebratory notes. They seem to reveal a real operational model here, something others could maybe learn from.
Think of it like an organizational blueprint, almost.
Hmm.
We're trying to look past the award ceremony itself and really analyze the specific things they do.
Yeah.
Their history, the philosophy behind it all.
Okay.
Let Post 828 create what our sources are calling a virtuous cycle of service.
Yeah.
So if you're involved in, any kind of community group, this could be a bit of a roadmap. How to really boost your impact, how to make sure your group sticks around.
A blueprint for sustainable success. Okay, I like that. Let's unpack this.
Right.
And we really have to start at the beginning, right, with the foundation, because it feels like the deep roots of Post 828 are, totally linked to how effective they are today.
Absolutely. You can't separate them. And that foundation, it's steeped in some serious history. Perseverance, too. The Post is named for Tech Sgt Fred Brock. Now, Brock was a Buffalo soldier, part of those historic, mainly black military regiments. He's from San Antonio, and he died in the line of duty back in 1943 at Fort Huachuca. So his name, right away, it grounds the whole thing in this legacy of, dedicated, honorable service. Service that often didn't get the spotlight it deserved.
And getting the Post started back then, I imagine that wasn't straightforward, given the time's mid-20th century realities.
Oh, not at all. The fact that the Post even exists is, frankly, pretty powerful. It came about because black veterans were absolutely determined. They pushed, they persisted, they wanted a place for, fellowship and service. They finally got their permanent charter in 1950.
Wow.
So, the founding itself was an act of community building, maybe even a kind of resistance, creating this safe, dedicated space where their service was just accepted, recognized, no questions asked.
That context is crucial. But then, moving forward, what really shapes their culture today? What carries across the generations? You mentioned a creed. Yeah, and it's deceptively simple, but it's the philosophical anchor. All service counts. Okay, let's pause there. All service counts. That sounds straightforward, but for a veterans post, the implications must be, pretty radical, right?
It is radical, and I think it's their key differentiator. Look, traditional ideas of military sacrifice, they often focus on, the battlefield being deployed overseas.
Right, combat.
Exactly. But when Post 828 says all service counts, boom, they instantly blow up the scope of their mission. It means someone who served stateside, maybe during peacetime, their service is just as valid as someone who saw combat. And, crucially, it stretches the idea of service into the community itself.
So if I'm a veteran joining this post, it's not just about attending meetings, maybe. It's about taking that discipline, that sense of duty I learned, and applying it right here in San Antonio.
Precisely. It shifts the focus. It's less about what you did then and more about what you do now. For the community. And that broad philosophy, that's what lets them run such a wide range of local programs, which I know we'll get into. It basically tells every potential member, whether they served 50 years ago or 5 years ago, your contribution matters, as long as it's focused on service.
And you can literally see that commitment. The sources talk about the Post being this really visible, modern place. They have an event center right there on San Antonio's MLK corridor. It's not some hidden clubhouse.
Yeah, that physical spot on that specific corridor, that's strategic. It's a statement. It says, we're invested, we're here, we're accessible. They're not just like remembering history, they're making it every day.
Right.
And that combination, honoring that deep legacy of Fred Brock, the Buffalo Soldiers, but also being physically and philosophically present right now in the neighborhood, that's the engine. That's the foundation driving their success.
Okay, so that physical presence is key for turning the philosophy into action. Now let's get into the mechanics. Like all American Legion posts, they operate under the 4 pillars. Can you remind us what those are? And then how does Post 828 make them, real, make them live? Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, yeah. The 4 pillars. It's the standard Legion structure, and it's pretty comprehensive. You've got Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation, Americanism, National Security, and Children and Youth.
Right.
And that framework, it's not just like bureaucratic boxes to tick. It's designed to push posts to think holistically, to engage the community broadly. So they're looking beyond just, say, VA benefits, and also thinking about education, civic stuff, supporting families.
Keeps things balanced. But how do they stop those pillars from just being, I don't know, generic goals on a wall somewhere?
Being super local and super tangible.
Yeah.
Let's start with children and youth, because Post 828 seems to treat local schools less like partners and more like, well, primary beneficiaries.
Okay, so what does that look like? Specific actions? You mentioned shoes and supplies earlier?
Yeah, the 2 big ones that jump out are Project Shoes and their Back-to-School Jamboree. Project Shoes, I mean, the concept's simple, but the impact, huge. They provide new shoes for JROTC cadets and other students who need them.
Okay.
Just think about what a good new pair of shoes does for a kid's confidence, especially in something visible like JROTC.
Yeah, absolutely. It tackles a really practical barrier. Dignity, too.
Exactly. Then you've got the Back-to-School Jamboree. This thing sounds like a massive undertaking every year. They give out hundreds of backpacks stuffed with supplies, plus meals for the kids and their families. And it's not just, dropping off a box of donations. It's an event. It's visible. People are there face to face. It really cements the Post's commitment to getting kids ready for school, expanding opportunities for that next generation. It's a real investment in the future. Future talent, future community members. That's serious long-term thinking. Okay, shifting gears a bit, back to the core mission. Veterans. How do they handle the VA and rehabilitation pillar? You hear stories about veteran support sometimes being reactive, only kicking in when there's a crisis. How are they proactive?
That's a great point. Post 828 seems really focused on fighting isolation. That's like the silent killer for so many veterans, right? So they use this consistent strategy called buddy checks, proactive wellness checks. And the sources suggest these aren't just like quick, how you doing calls. They're described as more tailored outreach, making sure vets are connected, getting their benefits. And this is important, staying involved, staying retained within the Post community.
But what makes a buddy check work? I mean, anyone can make a phone call, right? Sure. But the difference seems to be the consistency and maybe who's making the call. An effective buddy check, the way Post 828 does it, it's often another vet, someone who might know the local resources, VA stuff, mental health support, maybe job help.
Ah, okay.
So it turns a generic "how are you" into a more targeted, "hey, what do you need? Here's how we might be able to help." They also do advocacy work, run blood drives, reach out to older vets. It all fits under this umbrella of protecting veteran dignity, making sure people don't slip through the cracks.
Okay, so when you add it all up, the building on MLK, the shoes, the school supplies, the jamboree, these proactive buddy checks, it really feels like they're weaving themselves into the day-to-day fabric of the East Side.
That's a good way to put it, weaving themselves in.
And that consistency piece you mentioned, that's got to be the hardest part for any volunteer group.
It absolutely is. You need constant funding, people power, you need to avoid burnout.
Yep.
The sources seem to suggest Post 828 has kind of cracked the code on consistency because their service isn't just, transactional. It's designed to be visible, year-round, deeply personal. They don't just write checks. They show up. They put in the hours. And that builds incredible trust.
And that trust, that leads us right back to the award, doesn't it? D2 Strong honored them for forging this virtuous cycle of service. I really want us and you listening to get the mechanics of that. What makes this model work so well? And crucially, could others copy it?
Yeah, the virtuous cycle, it's basically like community compound interest. It's a loop where the service itself generates the resources, people, money, goodwill needed to do even more service. It feeds itself.
Okay, so walk me through the stages of that cycle based on what the award folks were saying.
Okay, stage 1 is that visible, hands-on community work. That's the stuff we just talked about. Project shoes, the jamboree, the buddy checks, things you can see and feel the impact of. It's undeniable.
Got it. Tangible results.
Right.
Right. Which leads directly to stage 2, building trust and neighborhood cohesion. When people see the Post actually delivering consistently, they start to believe in the organization. The Post becomes like a reliable anchor, a source of stability, maybe even aid. Okay, that makes sense. Trust builds. And then stage 3 must be where the compounding happens, the payoff that fuels the next round.
Exactly. Stage 3, attracting new multi-generational members and expanding impact. Because the post is trusted, because it's visible, younger veterans see it, local families see it, new volunteers see it, and they think, hey, I want to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so they join, or they support it. More members mean more hands on deck, fresh ideas, a bigger network, which lets them do more visible work, and bam, the cycle starts again, but maybe with a bit more energy this time.
That cycle makes intuitive sense, but, things happen. Funding might dip, volunteers get tired. Is there something specific in their structure, something the sources point to that keeps that cycle moving, makes it resilient?
Yeah, the sources really highlight the emphasis on inclusive leadership. That seems critical. Post 828 doesn't just, welcome vets from different wars. They actively cultivate what's called a modern Legion family. That means being intentionally welcoming, yes, but also focusing on passing down skills, developing people. They make sure their leaders, the commanders, the adjutants, the people running these programs, reflect that multi-generational approach.
So an inclusive leader, there isn't just someone who's open-minded. They're actively thinking about mentorship, succession planning.
Precisely. They're modeling 21st century servant leadership.
Yeah.
It means leaders get celebrated not just for, say, their own service record, but for their ability to bring in the next generation, develop them, empower them. Doesn't matter when you served or what your background is.
Right.
And that provides continuity. If one group of leaders needs to step back, the next group is already trained up, invested, and ready to keep that local consistent action going, that action that fuels the whole trust cycle.
So the implication is clear then. Their rising membership numbers, their high visibility, these aren't just lucky breaks.
Not at all.
They're the direct result of this deliberate structure, this inclusive approach. And linking back to that broad creed, all service counts. They're not just serving the community, they're actively growing the community of servers.
Yeah, they get it. They understand that legacy, history, it doesn't mean much if it doesn't connect with the, 25-year-old vet who just got home today. That person needs community just as much as the veteran who came home in 1950. By being open, welcoming different perspectives, they basically guarantee not just survival, but growth, expansion.
So, okay, let's try and synthesize this. What does it all mean for you listening? If we pull everything together, post-828 success seems to boil down to connecting this really profound, significant legacy, Fred Brock, the Black veterans who founded it, with incredibly practical, local action, like making sure kids have shoes, making sure veterans feel seen. They've basically proven that success really hinges on service that is, well, inclusive, deeply consistent, and undeniably local.
It's a powerful model, really. And I think there are 3 key lessons anyone can take from post-828. First, the power of having an expansive mission, like their all service counts creed. It just maximizes who can join and what you can do.
Okay.
Second, you absolutely need tangible, high visibility action in the community. People have to see you doing the work consistently.
Right. Can't just talk about it.
Exactly.
Yep.
And third, the long-term benefit of inclusive, multi-generational leadership. That's what ensures the organization doesn't just fade when the current leaders move on.
Yeah, this deep dive really shows how turning history into, well, living action can genuinely lift up a whole community. If you're involved in any kind of group, trying to build influence locally, trying to get more people involved, the blueprint seems to be right here. It's about radical local consistency and being genuinely, intentionally inclusive.
That radical consistency, that's the secret sauce, maybe. It really feels like it. And as we wrap up, just think about how they first defined their mission. That post defined honorable service, not just by dying in the line of duty, but by the daily grind, the sometimes mundane commitment to the community after service. So here's something to mull over. What kinds of honorable service in your own area, maybe quiet volunteering, helping a neighbor, local advocacy? What kinds of service are essential for keeping your community strong, but maybe get overlooked or aren't valued as much today? That's definitely something worth thinking about.